And something that Sarah Grace's remind me of was that I, you know, you were talking about that video, and I also mentioned my video and how it sticks out so much in my head. And I think that was one of the things I was really shocked about. And I told the class this too, was that, the media that is out there is just absolutely appalling. So if there was a parent that wanted to go online to find some sort of media to help their child understand, there's just not a lot. A lot of it, the media that you're going to find is either a really like weird kind of kitschy animation, which I take a little bit of a problem with because I know that they're trying to reach younger audiences, but it kind of separates it from reality, right? Like I think it needs to be real people because this is a real thing. It's not, just some animated like, oh, TV thing. No, this is like a real thing, and it happens to real people, and and then also, the other ones were like uh oh gosh, what was the other one? Other ones, there were a lot more videos about period poverty, which is a whole nother topic and a very important topic in and of itself. But that period education itself, it's just hard to find stuff on. And then the other videos were media that like period product companies are putting out. So, like Always or those kind of companies, they're putting out these things. And in my research, actually, there's an article that I used called "What's the State of Menstruation Education in US Schools? Significantly Lacking, Says Experts," by Beth Greenfield for Yahoo Lifestyle. And she talks about how a lot of these videos that are even used in schools, right? The ones that you can find online if you're at home, or the ones that are used in schools, are coming from these corporations and not from health educators. And that's an issue, right? Because what their main goal is not to educate, it's to get consumers. It's to have people buy their products and to make them like lifelong buyers of these products. And that's not what period education should be about. And also, so if you're in school, those are the kind of videos you're going to watch, or you're going to watch one that's really outdated, which again I think separates it from reality. That was for me. It kind of didn't feel real because the people didn't dress like me. The audio and video quality was, very bad. And so I think it just proves that we need this standardized education that is continually being updated, and it needs to be across the United States that's continually being updated with videos and media that is relevant and current for people to learn about this. And also that there need to be companies online that have more media for that and don't charge, because there are some that do have these like little programs where they charge money, but it really should be free because this is something that everybody goes through. But also, I mean, I think that period products should also be free. And the period tax is a whole nother thing, and that could be a whole nother video as well. But that was just really interesting to me, and so I wanted to bring up the role that the media plays in it for sure.
I mean, when I think back to my period slash menstruation slash reproduction introduction class, when I think back to any type of education I received for it, I think the most prominent thing that I was taught, and the one thing that was just drilled into my head the most, and it has nothing to do with what I'm going through. It has everything to do with do not flush your tampons down the toilet because you will clog the sewer. And I just like, that was the one thing about my period that was just always, always, always driven into me. God forbid I accidentally flush a tampon down our toilet at home. My mom said I could do it in public because their sewers can handle it, but our sewer, in our little neighborhood, just no, could not. And that's just, I feel like that speaks volume to how periods are perceived and how, they're looked at in the eyes of they're not that important to talk about, and they are important to talk about because Alice, with you not knowing that you had endometriosis until you're 20 is, is so mind-boggling, because there's so many women out there who honestly has no idea what endometriosis is, and might have it and has this pain, but just thinks that it's normal. I had a friend in my first years of college, and she just recently, within the last year, received a hysterectomy because hers had gotten just so bad. And, this was at the age of like 21, 22. So, around our age. And, it's just crazy because so many women don't know the things that they're supposed to not just be living with and dealing with on our own.
Absolutely. And I think, your point about how this, you know, the emphasis is put on don't flush the products down the toilet over this is what your period is. These are signs that, something might be wrong. That is so important because I mean, all throughout high school and I mean, I see it here as well in college, the posters on the bathroom doors in the women's bathroom say don't flush your female hygiene products down the toilet, but yet they have no information on, women's health, right? And
Nor any pads or tampons for women.
right,
Oh
those
my
are not
goodness, not even any feminine hygiene products.
and that's just so it's like what message are we sending people that we're not a good one that, that our toilets are more important than the actual people having their period, right? So I think that's such a good point, SG.
It's crazy. I will never forget. I was like, it was on a Wednesday, so it was when we all have class together, and that's my only day on campus. And oh my goodness, I did not have any hygiene products at all. I had no pad, no tampon, nothing was on me. And I literally asked every single woman I saw on campus or in the Watts Center and asked if they had one. I did not care at this point if I knew them, if I did not know them, or honestly, if they like worked for the school, if it was a teacher or anybody. I was asking around because I was like, it was one, oh my goodness, it was so bad. I was just, man, don't like them. And nobody had one. And so I was just sitting there and I was like so distraught because I was embarrassed because I thought that, I couldn't move because you can probably see like, the spots and all of that. And then I was like, also, like this, smell and, was very worried about how I smelled. And I mean, it just like consumed me. I was so worried and so embarrassed of what people would think about me. And if like I had, started bleeding through my tampon, and it was just, it really made me stop and think like there are still women out there who are sent away from their communities when they have their periods. And, like you said earlier, there are women who like, despite not finding a tampon, the reason why they can't find a tampon is because they can't afford one. And they're, having to do the toilet paper tissue wad that everybody will experience at least once in their life.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, that goes into period poverty, right? Because if these women are not able to afford products or they're not allowed to go out on their period because of the certain society that they live in, then they are not able to get their education, right? And then if they want to work, they also are not able to go to work at those times. So how can they hold a steady job? So how can they make money to help themselves and their family and get into a better situation? um, and that's such a huge problem. And it's we think that maybe that, oh, that's not happening near us, that's not happening in the US. No, it is. There are people who cannot afford um, feminine hygiene products, and that's just so wrong. And like even just in your instance, I mean, this it is not as extreme, right? As when there's a lot of people. But if even if you just forget a product right? That is a hindrance to your education because you can't find one and you're worried the whole time. How can you focus on the board when you're worried about bleeding, bleeding through or whatever, all of those things. I mean, because that's happened to me too. I've had class periods where I have not thought about the class because I'm dealing with my period. And like that really is a hindrance because we don't have, that free access in every bathroom. Um, everywhere. And I'm not putting that on, just our school. Like this is everywhere, really.
I mean, like, absolutely. And, what you said earlier, it reminded me of the saying, people say, like, when you're out to dinner and you don't eat all your food, they're like, oh, wow, that's so wasteful. Think of the starving children in Africa. And it's like, hold on. Like, children are not only starving in Africa, and, children are starving here in Clemson, South Carolina, and, are here starving everywhere. And so it just made me think of, you think, oh, like that can't happen like in America. And it's like, no, it can, because there's families out there who, can't afford to, I mean, most nights to have a full meal or to have, 3 meals a day. So how do you think they would be able to afford this $15 box that does not include tax of feminine hygiene products? Like, it is wild. Like, I mean, they barely have $5 to, get dinner, and you're going to ask like over $10 for, maybe 1 week's worth of supply.
Absolutely. And yeah, so and on the topic of the US specifically and the problems that we're facing here in our very own country, um, through my research, I used a study. It's the results from the School Health Policies and Practices study from the Center for Disease Control. And this was done in 2014 and then put out in 2015. So it's a few years old. But I think that the actual information is really important and still relevant. So table 119 in the 1.19, excuse me, in this study says is the percentage of schools in which teachers taught specific human sexuality topics as part of required instruction by school level. And human development issues, such as reproductive anatomy and puberty, um, the total percentage was 39.5%. The elementary school percentage was 20.6%. The middle school percentage was 45.3%, and the high school percentage was 66.4%. And one thing I'm seeing right away is elementary school 20.6%. A lot of people get their periods in elementary school. That is super common, right? But yet you have the most information about human development issues and reproductive anatomy, puberty in high school at 66.4%, which is still pretty low because that's only a little over half, right? But yet, but that's way past the time when people actually need that information, and then middle school, that's under 50%, 45.3% of middle schools that were surveyed in this study. I mean, that's crazy too, because that's really, really when a lot of people are getting their periods. And that's just wild to me. I thought this information was really, really fascinating. And I in it too, they talk more about, like, in high schools and stuff, about um let's see, about like dating and healthy relationships, about abstinence being the most effective method of birth control, and about the influences of peers on sexual behavior. I'm going through the list of things. They talk about those things more than they talk about human development issues.
Or even
And
sexual assault, like
right,
like um like sexual harassment, which is, oh my goodness, is so prominent, and especially middle school, because that's that, middle school through college is definitely that big time boys will be boys, little phase in life. And women aren't even taught like to how to protect themselves.